So welcome to this deck profile. So I've been testing Vairina on the site, and I've eventually picked it up as one of my main decks for the English format going forward. So Vairina is the main protagonist, or rather is used by the main protagonist of Vanguard Overdress, and thus actually features the mechanic Overdress, which is basically you stack cards on top of Trickster over here, and treat it as an evolution in a sense. So those who are familiar with like Digimon and even Duel Masters back in the day, this might be pretty familiar to you. Effectively, it's kind of like riding the Vanguard. So this top playstyle actually can be very all-in, as you're putting all your cards into one card. But because of the way they design it, this deck is actually pretty balanced, and in my opinion has one of the most balanced matchup charts in terms of set 1 at least. So what makes this deck so good at aggroing people? Let's get into that. So before we get into the main deck, let's cover the right line itself. So of course, Sunrise Egg. Then we'll get into Blaze-Brilliant Reno. So when you write Rejuvenate, which is the grade 2, you can sprinkle a Trickstar from your deck. So basically this guarantees you 1 Trickstar per game, so that you will always be able to overdress in the game. Relatively strong card, also is an early 5k booster. And also, Trickstar over here, which is our dress target, has a skill where it can be chosen by opponent's card effect, making it immune to most retire effects, and thus very easy to set up. Then we have Ray over here. When you're ridden by Nirvana, Chakrabarti Divine Dragon Nirvana, so +1, search attack for 1 Vairina. So Vairina is actually this card, the original Overdress unit from the start deck, which is this character over here, and add it to your hand. So this helps you set up plays. So basically with this, even if nothing else in your hand, on turn 2 you get this, turn 3 you're guaranteed at least a Vairina. So if this Nirvana is really consistent, Nirvana also has another skill, which is over here. Activate discard 1 card from your hand, choose a grade 0 from your draw zone, and you can call it to a Vanguard circle. So later in the game, if you do run out of Vanguards or just want to start Overdress, Nirvana can actually discard a card to revive any grade 0 from your draw zone. So obviously you're going to choose Trickstar. So this, with these 3 cards alone, this makes Nirvana one of the most consistent decks. Now the Vairina Nirvana, yeah, same thing. This makes Overdress one of the most consistent deck in the format, as the right line basically guarantees you it. Although there are some people who actually choose to cut Sunrise Egg and play Trickstar as starter to guarantee 1 more in the soul. So if you play this lineup, you actually are guaranteed to see 2, 1 through the right line, 1 once you soul blast the grade 0. So choose which you prefer. Sunrise Egg gives you the extra draw, but Trickstar gives you consistency. Next up, the core cards. Of course, let's go talk about Vairina. So Vairina is a skill, when the Overdress state, when it attacks Vanguard, it gets 10k, making it a free 20k attacker, demanding a lot from turn 2 onwards, and it wins extra skill to Soul Blast 2 to retire any opponent's Vanguard. So with this, you can actually snipe off annoying Vanguards if you try to rush you, or just annoy people yourself with the skill. Then there's Vairina Arcus, the card from the main set. Con +1, when you place on Overdress, so only for this turn, it gains 5k and you draw 2 cards. Then of course, let's talk about the cover card. So this is Vairina Valiente. So this card's very powerful, and unlike these 2 which are only Overdress and Trickstar, Valiant over here has an additional effect. So Valiant can actually tricks Overdress on top of any grade 2 or above, grade 3 or less, yeah, with Overdress. So you can actually stack Valiants on top of each other, so you can add Valiant to actually increase the stack, or you can revolve it directly on Trickstar. So this makes this card very flexible, as you can use it as a simple 18k, or you can use it when you stack up more power to make sure it hits. So this leads up to its 2 effects. So the first skill, it gets 5k for each dress underneath it. So if 1 it gets 5, it gets 2 it gets 10, and so on. So with this card actually has a consistent power on both players' turn. So if your opponent doesn't have removal, even at worst 18k, this is still very hard to get rid of without removal skills. This makes the deck very resilient and makes the columns very consistent, especially since you also have Vairina over here. Arcus then plays a bad card roll to get you more cards in hand, and it's usually the main one you want to evolve into Valiant. So with this in mind, this actually ties in what you have to play in the deck. So Trickstars is guaranteed, as we need the dress for this. We also play Vairina as a way to have more overdress units, and of course Arcus for card draw. And so I explain the rest of the skills. At this point now I'll explain to you how the deck actually wins. So we know how it forms the dress and all that. So with that I'll highlight these two cards once again. So okay, let's do Vairina. So Vairina is a 20k decker with overdress. Then we have Valiant with the free power, but Valiant also features this skill where when it attacks hit and it's in overdress state, you can +1, discard a card to withstand this unit. So this gives the deck able to pressure very hard as your opponent at 5 damage. If this hits, it withstands, you can attack again. You can even go after a Vanguard with this and withstand this and immediately win the game. Your opponent lacks at 5k shield to guard. So this deck has very consistent columns, it's able to rush, and this added on by Nirvana's skill to +1 to give all units with overdress ability 10,000 power. So this actually does not need the cards to be in overdress state. So you can actually just play a Vanilla Valiant and it's beating a 23k after Nirvana. Nirvana also boosts itself, so its E itself won't be that big, it'll be minimum 23k. So combine Persona Ride and all this makes the deck a very strong aggro deck. And for this reason, personally, I've chosen to go into this route of the deck. So with this, let me put this aside and put Valiant back. I've chosen to run 3 Blaze Maiden Reno. So more on the right deck card, strictly for this skill, attack Vanguard plus 2k. So this helps the deck rush early game. So let's say early game, you can actually call the Trickstar behind it on a Radar Circle, which is a common play, to hit 15k. Or during turn 2, you can play it to rush. Then, triggers. I'm of course playing with crits, 8 crits, 4 heals, and 3 draws. Criticals are actually very important to push in damage early, and also there's some strategy with it, as I'll get into in the matchups and just key plays. So this actually leaves us with not much to really experiment around, in my opinion. So here's one card called Dragon Deity of Resurgence Strike Vida, which is the over trigger. Personally, this is the best in my opinion, and this guarantees you an extra attack. So with this deck, as you can see, if Valiant doesn't hit, you only get the 3 attacks a turn. So this card can actually change the type of repel more consistently than All Barrier. So All Barrier is a win more card. It can be stronger when your field's already set up, but when playing from behind, this card's definitely better. Still, play the one you prefer, as 2 Valiants with this is insane, as Sean has told me. So over triggers, yep. Then this actually leaves us with only 4 slots to mess around with for me. So the most commonly played card you'll see many people play is Burn Bright's Pure Prayer, which is this card. It's a blitz order, so you play it when you're being attacked. It's a once per turn, remember, as all the orders are. And it gives your Vanguard 15k if you have 3 or more damage. So this is an extra more shield. So as you're playing with kind of a low hand size, well not really low, but not the highest at least, having more shield is really good, as we do run the draws still for some stability. Then for the other 2 slots, I choose to play Extremist Dragon Value Soul Hazard. So this is a simple 10k booster. So when you boost a unit, it gets 2k power, so it becomes a 10k booster. So you place it behind anything really. It pushes the attack guaranteed by 1 stage. So behind even like a 1 dress Valiant, this is a 28k column which demands a 20k guard. A 2 dress Valiant with 33k, which demands also 2 guards, but a 20k and a 5k, which is really amazing. Behind any of this is 2 form set. Normally I'll save it for the Vanguard, so to make sure Valiant can actually go through. So now I'll talk about some deck building options. So here are the cards which I've went through with my friend Drevov actually, which is writing the Vairina guide. So do look out for that, he's put in a lot of effort. So some cards that definitely sees on play is Sunlight Punishment, which is a Secretary Order card. Some people say it's a win more card, which I kind of agree with, but having that on-demand retire is really strong, especially since Vairina can only clear once a game nightly because Soul kind of limited in the deck. So do consider this if you run into a lot of Bastions or Bruce if they commit early, or even Magnolia, they can just Slow White. I mean, it's even the Nirvana on it, well why not? Then for the other options is Penetrate Dragon Tri-Breach. So Tri-Breach is a really interesting card. It's actually designed more for Eugene, which focuses on controlling your opponent's board to 2 rare cards or less. but when your Vanguard attacks, you can put it to the soul to give your Vanguard critical +1 until the end of battle. So there's actually some plays you can do with this to maintain soul, actually meet the second cost for Vairina Valiente 2 rather consistently. Also, you can place it in the back row actually or something to give your Vanguard crit, so your opponent has got the Vanguard and the Ray Guards, especially got Valiant. Then the lesser played cards, I guess, would be Stealth Dragon Hado Shugen, which is, I don't really like this card, but when placed +1, if you got Overdress, a unit in Overdress state, so you actually need to have something in Overdress, you can retire any Ray Guard for 1 +. Generally, it's very excessive, and I'd rather play Sunlight Punishment than that, if it comes to that. Then the last 2 cards, they're out, personally, is Drag Ritter Alwilif, which is the most cheap, I guess, the most cost-effective retire it has besides Sunlight Punishment. +1 to +1 when placed on Ray Guard Circle, choose one opponent's grade 2 greater Ray Guards and retire it. So this is cool for retiring early game rush aggro. And if you play it, definitely do remove these 4 flag slots to put in. 4 grade 2 is also pretty good for rushing, I guess. Then the one card I want to talk about is this card, Stealth Group of Iron Blade Oshikuni. Okay, English really helps. So what this card does is similar. When it attacks, you get 5k if you play 2 less Ray Guards. Designed more for Eugene, but if you want to play the all aggro lineup and just play more attackers here, feel free to do so, as 15 still hits magic numbers on grade 2 turns. And it can be a good card to call early game before you commit into your Arcus and your Valiants. Then, okay, let's talk about more options to actually improve the consistency of the deck. So I've talked about how the cards actually support the main strategy and add on to it, but let's talk about how to increase the consistency of the main deck. So this is 2 cards. So first one is Sunburst Evolution, which is the order card to the control deck. I know people have dropped this card, but personally I feel it still has some room, especially if you can't afford to play so many Valiants, or you choose not to play Valiants, to consider this card. So play this card as +1, choose one of your units, it gets 5k. Then choose a Vairina, which basically only this Vairina. Do note that the right deck and this card only can take the original Vairina, so definitely do not misplay and take a Valiant out and win. Then he also puts it in hand, so it's pretty strong, forms magic numbers and ensures you get attackers. Alternatively, if you're playing a budget build and you can't afford too many Valiants, just play this instead. It's not as good, but you're saving a lot of money. Then this card, wondering why I'm not playing it, is Dalazabar Stealth Dragon Densashi. So when this card attack and this unit boost attack hits +1, retire himself, you copy the Vanguard basically. So if you're on a grade 3, you can take the Persona Right. So this is essentially used just to fetch Persona Right, decked in very slightly at the cost of itself. Personally, as you can see, if I not already gives 10k to the front of 1 Blast, so when you're using this skill, you could actually be using this skill. So as I'll get into, the deck's Blast is really limited, but do feel free to run it in these 4 spots here if you choose to do so. Now let's talk actual game strategy. So during the Mulligan phase, you actually want to be keeping this card over here, Vairina Arcus, which actually draws 2 cards to help you draw into your combo pieces, and of course Valiant if possible. Alternatively, if you're in a matchup where you feel you need to rush, keeping 10k deckers like Reno or just any other grade 2 is really recommended, and perfect cards are pretty self-explanatory. So let's see, we'll keep these 3 cards. Let me draw 2. So, oh, this is a very good starting hand. So generally, your early game will be like this, then you draw, or like, okay, I'll just draw this. You write into Reno. So Reno Spirit Calls, doesn't Spirit Call, then enter, let's say we start first. Let me check. Then, my turn, stand draw. You can usually drop 1 Arcus. Writes into Ryu. So Ryu will call Trickster. So you call it to the back row. Let's say, if you go here, you can shove 2 choices depending on what's in your hand. You can actually use it as a booster for attackers like Reno. So this actually forms a 15k line. Or you can immediately overdress it into a Vairina or an Arcus. So Arcus here forms a 15k column, but it draws you 2 cards. Or you can go Reno for 15k column. If you have one or the other, definitely go for this. Draw 2. Yeah, 2 draws very good. Then personally I like to go aggro, so it's like 10, 12, 15. Okay, check crit. If I'm from now, let's survive that. Then next turn, let's see in the normal game. Draw. Then stand draw. They take 2 damage, let's say. Stand draw. let's say we throw one card, let's throw a crit, there's too many good cards in hand. We write into Vairina. So Vairina skill actually adds Vairina to hand. Nirvana skill, sorry. Then with this, don't forget to play Soul Blast one. And now we can just keep going. So there are actually some lines of play you can go here. So you can actually just go into Valiant immediately to punish. But as you see, we don't have a second Trickster, which we actually want. So you can just move this to the deck and just call, in my opinion here, the right play will be called Vairina over here. And deck it with Nirvana. So Nirvana is usually attacking first in this deck as it gives power to the Regards. So this is beating for 28k, this is beating for 23 plus 10, 33k, even without triggers, then 25. Yep. So this is actually how the deck plays its early game. Now, of course, this is with a somewhat ideal situation with crit. And this is also a way out to bring up why people do like to play Trickster as starter. So, why do you play Trickster as starter, for example? Let's play Trickster as starter. Here, we can actually Soul Blast a Trickster over here. And then revive it with Nirvana to guarantee the double Trickster. You do lose the one draw going second, which definitely matters against some matchups, but that consistency is really relevant. Where the deck's like final turn feels, so obviously rushing a crit generally works, but eventually you want to try to aim for a feel like this. Okay, I'm missing one Overdress. So when you got two Trickstars out and able to maintain them, yeah, you can actually play Trickster over here and form pretty good columns if they want. So why this lineup in particular is because, let's say if two dress here, when you attack with Nirvana, you can actually keep power to both. So you can blast one. So you usually need to can blast for this pressurizing play. So if you do check a critical trigger, I'll just take it out. If you do check a crit here, you can actually give it to Vairina over here. So this becomes a 2 crit attack, but this gives the 1 hit. So this is what I like to call the Vairina checkmate. Okay, the Valiant checkmate. Pretty bad name actually. Yeah, but with this is pretty much checkmate. Your opponent's at 4 damage and they got very low cards in hand, as they can't afford to no-guard Vairina. Nirvana, as this will just win the game by itself. But if you pump the crit to Vairina over here, this waiting for 20, 30, 38. So this 38 hits a magic number. So against the 13k Vanguard, this burns 35, I believe, 40, 30k guard from your opponent's hand, which is really something. So all these numbers are pushed with Persona Right, and this is including that you have tried to rush them early game. Well, if they got the 2 crit attack, here's Valiant. So Valiant is hitting for 33k on its own, and if it hits, it over this 10 no matter what, or come last one. So the opponent's low-end cards, typically on a 6 card hand size, this can be a checkmate when you check the crit. So this is one of the most important setups you need to know. The other thing I'll tell you is the deck's weaknesses. So yes, now let's take a situation like this. You see the Arcus and your opponent is here at 3 damage or something. So over here, this is clearly one of the biggest weaknesses of the deck, which you can take advantage you're playing against the deck. But as a player playing into it, you must also know how to play around the play around. Yeah, kind of some sort of like hybrid IQ thing there. But so basically, Nirvana's main weakness is it's very counterblast heavy. So despite not having constantly more than 4 attacks a turn, the deck's strong aggro is very overwhelming, especially when it starts first. So the weaknesses of the deck is actually to control its damage count. So you see like over here, your opponent sees 3 damage right now. If you low hand hands because you're trying to rush, you have to choose between Nirvana, Valiant, and Arcus for your con blasts. So in these start scenarios, it can be very hard, especially when you got no Persona Right. If you got Persona Right, it's not that bad, but if you got no Persona Right, these cards are hitting amazing numbers. And if you use con blast 1 for Nirvana, Valiant loses its on-hit pressure because its skill is gone. So when you're playing into Vairina especially, you really know how to control its damage. As the player playing Vairina, the quickest tip I can give you is focus on playing a slower game, maintain your hand size, and of course abuse the fact that you still have a strong attacker in the form of Vairina, the original one. So do not just switch it out early game if you suspect generally keep one in hand, so the one on the right deck, even if you go to Arcus, really matters, and do try to keep it, as this is the only card that can gain power without counterblast in your Nirvana deck, besides Persona Red of course. So generally with that type of playstyle, you can just form like Arcus to focus on draw, or Vairina's columns to just push, and or you can just use Valiant for the raw numbers. Then the next weakness is of course Overdress, is putting all cards in one. So retire can actually be very dangerous for the deck. You commit everything to one, they play a card to get rid of it, and yeah, you just suddenly lose 3 cards that you just spend some time building on. So if against Overdress, removal of it in general, you can actually abuse 2 strategies of the issue. So the first is being just forming lower numbers, so lower stacks, yeah. So you just use Arcus for the card draw. So prioritize the combust for Arcus to maintain your card advantage. So you can continue to push with small numbers. And sometimes you don't need to overdress all the units until you're ready to win, which is where Valiant comes in. Generally, putting 2 stacks of Valiant against a removal deck is very bad, and I would not recommend it until you reach your final turns. Also against matchups like Prison, cards like Trickstar can also be abused. So Trickstar can be used for its reduced ability. So similarly to what I said just now, you can actually try to form this field over here with all the Trickstars. So in the Prison matchup, after you have enough Conblast to play, you can actually play a very kind of lame game where you just farm cards with Arcus over here. So you can just Conblast 1 and read drawing 2. But if they die, they die. So like so what? Generally, what you're going to do with the strategy is just form key numbers with Trickstar and Valiant for 18k. With Persona Right is 28, with Nirvana is 38. So you're just going to farm, play it slow, deny their 3 in bind, or retire skills with this. And of course, just continue playing a very stable game. So just play. On opponent low on cards, that's when you play your Overdress at full force. You can just like intercept with them with something. And once later in the game, push it to the front, Overdress, maybe double Overdress, and that's you going to go for game. Also on that note about being damage denied, generally I do not recommend guarding too early, as although maybe it's like Bastion. Bastion wants to go in every time, so Bastion is going to give you the damage most of the time. But with Vairina over here, or like mirror matches or something, having more Conblast can actually win you the game. So here I'll highlight one card that I brought out earlier, which is Penetrate Dragon Tri-Brash. So Tri-Brash is a card I feel has a lot of potential in Nirvana, although the seal is kind of limited. So what I meant was about that is, let's say you have 1 soul, exactly 1 soul. Okay, you're never gonna need this soul, but yeah. Then when you attack with this column here, you can actually resolve. Yeah, so if you're attacking with Vanguard first, I mean, you can actually put Tri-Brash soul to give it a crit. So this is a must guard. Then now Valiant can get this 2 more soul. This soul works well as the checkmate scenario I've actually brought up earlier. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this Nirvana deck overview or deck profile. I'll probably put it as deck profile. And I wish you luck in the matchups in set 1. Next up is set SF01, which will introduce this card over here, which is kind of useful. I'll get into that maybe soon maybe. With that, let's just take a look at how Vairina develops. It's pretty underrated by some players, but if you know how to pilot this deck, like I'm not saying that like elitist snob, but like, if you know actually how to play this deck, it's actually very dangerous. Although it has its fair share of weaknesses, it's because of this all-rounded playstyle and the multiple paths it can go is where this deck actually shines. So it's truly a deck with a lot of potential, especially with Vairina Elgar is confirmed. We'll get another Grade 3 Vairina likely, so they'll all just quickly expand on the potential. So to summarize one last time, if you like aggro deck, which has a very good chance of getting good support because it's main character after all, do pick up Vairina.